Have you ever felt like you're talking, but nobody's really listening? Like you're on completely different wavelengths?
It can be so frustrating. Everyone wants deeper communication, really feeling heard and understood.
Well, that's what we're diving into today, this idea called nonviolent communication, or NVC.
We found this really interesting website about holistic therapies, and it talks about how NVC can totally change relationships for the better.
Like helping couples when they disagree, parents connecting with their kids, even coworkers getting along.
And get this, it all goes back to Gandhi and his nonviolence ideas.
What's interesting is it's not about being quiet or avoiding conflict completely.
It's more about approaching communication differently, being honest about what we feel, but also really hearing the other person.
Okay, so no more silent treatment, hoping things just magically work out.
Because honestly, sometimes that feels easier.
I get it. But NVC is more, active, I guess.
It's about realizing what needs are behind why we act certain ways and what's driving other people too.
So instead of blaming, we try to understand each other better.
All right, now I'm really curious. So who came up with this whole NVC thing?
A psychologist named Marshall ROSENBERG.
This was back in the mid-20th century, and he was inspired by folks like Carl Rogers, you know, the humanistic psychology guy.
Rogers was all about empathy, really listening without judgment during therapy.
So this has real psychological backing. It's not just like a self-help trend.
No way.
Rosenberg's work is based on tons of research.
He even used stuff from Manfred Max Neef, who studied human needs.
Yeah.
NVC says a lot of our conflicts come from, like, basic needs not being met.
Yeah. You know, I gotta be honest. When I hear nonviolent communication,
I picture those old films, black and white, people with peace signs, tie-dye shirts.
it sounds very formal, even a little dramatic for just talking to people every day, you know.
I totally get it. The name can sound like a lot at first.
But the cool thing is, NVC is super practical. You can use it anywhere, anytime. It's about communicating without hurting anyone, building connections instead of walls. And actually, this website gets into how Rosenberg chose to write it with capital letters, nonviolent communication.
To set his work apart from other methods.
So it's about really choosing our words carefully because they have power.
Exactly. And NVC shows us how to use that power to build people up.
Okay, I'm hooked. Lay it on me. What are the parts of this more compassionate way of talking to each other?
So NVC has these four main pieces: observation, feelings, needs, and requests.
Kind of like steps in a dance, you know, to a better conversation.
A communication dance.
Now, that's an image I can work with. All right, let's break it down. What's this communicating through observation mean?
It starts with seeing things neutrally.
Like a scientist just watching what's happening, no opinions added. The website uses this classic example. Imagine your partner left their socks on the floor, right?
Instead of going, you always leave your stuff everywhere, which is easy to do.
You stick to just the facts. I see your socks on the floor.
Oh, so like I'm a robot.
Not quite a robot, but the point is, we take out the blame.
You're just presenting the situation as it is.
I can see how that changed things instantly. Less chance of the other person getting defensive and shutting down, right?
Exactly. It makes things feel safer to talk.
This is making me rethink a few conversations I've had, not gonna lie.
Okay,
So observation goggles are on. What's the next move in our communication dance?
next, we got to tune into our own feelings.
This part's about being real about how the situation makes us feel.
But, and this is important, without blaming the other person for those feelings.
So, like, instead of being all steamed about those socks, I'd say, seeing the socks on the floor is making me frustrated.
You got it. You're taking ownership of the feeling.
That's huge because saying you're making me frustrated just puts up a wall right away.
Right. This is how I feel, not this is your fault.
Exactly. And just to be clear, acknowledging our feelings doesn't mean letting them go crazy or anything.
It's about, like, noticing them so we can communicate better, not get ruled by our emotions.
Kind of like, if you can name it, you can tame it.
Naming those feelings helps us control how we express them.
Exactly. Now, here's where NVC gets really powerful. Step 3, needs.
Think about it. We get hung up on the socks, the dishes, whatever the little thing is.
But those are just symptoms. Like, the real issue is some need isn't being met underneath it all. Once you understand that, the whole game changes.
Okay, now I'm really listening. How do we, like, uncover those deeper needs? Beyond the sock frustration, obviously.
Take some inner work. You got to ask yourself, what need of mine is not being met right now because of this?
In the sock case, maybe it's a need for order. Could be wanting a peaceful environment. Even just wanting to feel like you're both taking care of the home together, you know?
Oh, wow. It's not about the socks, ATA, y'all.
what they represent. My need for things to be calm and organized. Okay, I see where this goes. So we've got the observation, we've said how we feel, we found that deeper need. Last step of the NVC dance.
This is where it all comes together. Requests. We gotta say what we need, but in a way that's clear, specific, and respectful.
So not pick up your socks, which, let's be real, sounds kind of bossy.
How would you rephrase that as a request?
Instead of demanding, try, would you be willing to put your socks in the hamper before bed tonight?
You're saying, I need order, but giving an action that helps meet that need.
It's amazing how just changing the words a bit makes it softer, but still gets the point across.
It's direct, but without the blame that just makes fights worse.
And the key here is it's genuine, not a demand disguised as a request. They're allowed to say no.
Or even suggest something else entirely.
So it's about working together, not one person dictating to the other.
You got it. NVC gives everyone the power to say what they need honestly, while still respecting each other.
This website also talks about how NVC works in so many places, not just arguments.
Like building stronger relationships in general, even at work, it's a whole new way to see how we interact.
It's like a lens, shifting our perspective.
And this is where it's more than just a technique.
It's a whole way of being, cultivating empathy for ourselves and others. There's even this quote they have from Maya Angelou. People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel.
Wow. So NVC is about making the other person feel heard and understood, even when you disagree on things.
You got it. Creating space for honesty and kindness in every interaction.
This actually reminds me, we talked about empathy versus sympathy earlier. Could you explain that a bit more? I think it's crucial for really getting NVC.
For sure. So sympathy is usually our knee-jerk reaction when someone's having a tough time.
It's like we say, oh, I'm so sorry, or that's awful, and we mean well, but...
Sympathy keeps us kind of distant from what they're going through. Empathy, though, that's about stepping into their shoes, feeling with them, not judging.
Trying to see through their eyes, connect with their experience on a deeper level.
Exactly. And NVC helps us build that empathy.
By shifting from blame to understanding, instead of what's wrong with them, it's what need are they trying to meet with this behavior.
Subtle change, but huge difference. We stop seeing them as the problem and start seeing a person just trying to get through life, like us.
Exactly. And when we recognize that we're all in this together, we can connect and understand each other so much better.
It's a lot to take in, really. Like, can I actually use this in my everyday life?
Especially when things get heated, my old habits come back so fast.
It definitely takes practice, you're right.
Think of it like learning a new language. At first you're translating in your head, but eventually it just flows.
So how do we get from those awkward first steps to really speaking fluent empathy?
Self-awareness is key.
Start paying attention to how you communicate normally.
How often do you jump to judging, criticizing, blaming?
Once you see those patterns, you can start changing them.
Catch ourselves before we fall into those old traps.
Exactly. And that's where self-empathy is huge.
When you feel yourself getting triggered, hit pause for a second. Connect with your own needs.
Ask, what am I feeling right now? What's going on inside me? What need of mine isn't being met in this situation?
Like on airplanes, they say, put your own oxygen mask on first, right?
Can't help anyone else if you're struggling to breathe yourself.
Exactly. Self-empathy is the foundation.
It lets us handle tough conversations with way more understanding for ourselves and the other person.
This deep dive has been so eye-opening.
I've got all these new tools for communicating better, but it's a journey, not a quick fix, I know.
You got it. It's something you keep working on your whole life. Learning, growing, always finding ways to connect more deeply with people.
So as we wrap up this exploration of nonviolent communication, what's one thing you hope our listeners will take away from it?
Remember, every time we talk to someone, even just small exchanges, those are all opportunities to really connect.
If we start with curiosity, with wanting to understand, with empathy,
we can build stronger relationships and make the world a more compassionate place.
It's like that beautiful quote we heard. People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. But people will never forget how you made them feel.
So today, as you go through your day, ask yourself, how can I make the people around me feel seen, heard, truly valued? It could be the beginning of something amazing for you and for everyone you encounter.